Welcome to Pcgtv Sports Time with Jerome. This is our first edition for the year 2025. Last year we had a very interesting sporting year, a year that had so many sporting developments, and we did our best to bring you the issues and the conversations around them. This year we are going on the same platform, the same path, and even better. We hope to get you the best of sports interviews, the best of sports news on this channel. I'll go for a short break. When I come back, I give you the scripture for the day, and then I'll introduce my guest, and the show continues. Welcome back. For our scripture for the day, I take you to Joshua. It's one text I read this week. I have liked it so much, and I want to share it with you. Joshua chapter 24, verses 15. My interest is in the last sentence, but then I'll read from the first sentence, which says that, "But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve." This was Joshua addressing the Israelites. Would you prefer the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates? Or will it be the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live? But as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. This was Joshua making a stance, taking a stance for the Lord, telling the Israelites that if you choose to serve the smaller gods, the gods that have not even helped you in any form, as for me and my family, as for me and my household, other translations say household, we will serve the Lord. And it's the same encouragement I give you. Joshua showed spiritual leadership, deciding to stand with the Lord. It's the same thing we must also do. Critical moments of decision making, let us stand with the Lord. We'll go for a break. When we come back, I'll introduce my guest. Welcome back. So like I was telling you, this is going to be a great sporting year. Even though Ghana will be missing some major tournaments in the year, the issues are a lot for us. And with me today to look at the issues, take a look into the sporting year 2025 for Ghana. It's one man who has been in this profession for some time. He knows his stuff. He's been talking sports on radio and TV all over the place, writing online, traveling to competitions, and making sure that viewers and listeners of his show get to know what is happening. I'm talking about, there's a name he doesn't often use, but I'll start with that. Henry Ohini Brenya. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The sports editor at Happy FM, Happy Sports, or better put, Global Media Alliance. Top man there. And today he has been gracious to us to join us on Pcgtv to look at the issues, the sporting issues for Ghana. Once again, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jerome. I think the Kotoko in you is still working. Henry is the team manager for Santa Kotoko. I am Augustine.
Look at me.
And there's a backstory to this. Maybe one day I'll tell you.
Forgive me. Yeah, see, he's correcting me. This is a gaffe. Forgive me. The point is that he is not Henry.
Augustine.
He is Augustine. And I was talking. Henry is a former Kotoko captain.
Yeah.
I think he's
now
now
team manager.
Team manager of Kotoko. Look,
I get that a lot.
Once again, forgive me. I think it's because all of you are in sports, but then, apologies. The name should be right.
I'll tell you a funny story. One big, football administrator called me one day. I was online. And I was like, "I've sent you something for Kotoko, and you've not responded. You've not replied." And I was on the line quietly. I said, "Oh, chairman, but I know where Ohini Brenya Happy FM."
I think it's the Ohini Brenya bit that confuses all of us. But the name is Augustine Ohini Brenya, sports editor, Global Media Alliance, specifically Happy Sports. Welcome to the show once again.
Thanks, Jerome.
I wanted us to start the conversation looking at the major sporting issues. But, I mean, given the fact that we have a new government, we have a new president who is basically, is it 10 days, 9 days, as we shoot this show, in office, and appointments are being made. We've seen that of education, we've seen agriculture, we've seen security couples being appointed here and there. Some have even gone on vetting, like finance, like attorney general. I mean, we are waiting. Maybe by the time this show airs, the sports minister would have been named. So key to this conversation as we start the year is that we have a new government. We are definitely going to have a new sports minister. Even before the sports minister comes, I mean, if he has come, that's fine. But then there's a creation of a new ministry. A new ministry in the sense that we used to have youth and sports ministry. Now, President Mahama, His Excellency President Mahama, has cut away the youth, created Youth Development and Empowerment Ministry, and given us sports and recreation. Just to take your view on that, what do you think went into this change, and does it hold any good prospects for us? I mean, what's the prospect for this ministry?
Well, I think the president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, made a promise during the campaign period that he was going to establish a ministry for youth. You remember during the campaign period, they launched the Youth Manifesto. And if you pay critical attention, you realize that the youth played a very critical role in the last election. So they also maximized on the numbers in the youth brackets to campaign, and they made, some promises to the youth. So I'm not surprised that they've had, that's, distinction between the youth and sports ministry now, and they are standalone ministries. I was earlier a bit skeptical about whether indeed sports is going to stand alone or not, because of the number of ministries he promised us whilst campaigning, that he was going to run a lean government of not more than 60 ministers. So I was a bit skeptical, but finally he reduced the numbers from 30 to 23, and fortunately sports was in there, and having a standalone ministry, sports and recreation. That's a very interesting one. We don't have full clarity on what the recreation bit means, but it is not lost on us, because sports in itself started as recreation. A lot of them started as recreation, and in advanced societies, they have sporting disciplines that are not competitive sports, that people engage in for fun, for social cohesion, for health benefit and all that, but they are not competitive sporting disciplines. So in terms of funding, in terms of building infrastructure, it gives you much more clarity in terms of what to do. The coming days, I'm sure we'll get more details as to what they really mean by recreation, and what the plans they have in terms of recreation. But sports, we are very clear in our minds what the government will want to do.
And that clarity is something I want us to explore more. You see, people have said that, yes, and I have welcomed the sports and recreation idea. I think it's a fine idea. But sports in itself, before the president comes in, or the minister will come in with clarity on what they mean by recreation, sports in itself in Ghana has challenges. Absolutely. And people have said that, why not have a standalone sports ministry which will focus on the challenges facing the industry? Now you are going to add something to it, and if we are not careful, we might still have the problems that we had when youth was added. Do you share the same view?
I beg to differ. Okay. But I'm not part of those who formulated this, so I'm just guessing. I'm doing guessing.
Yeah.
I think that for the recreation bit, government may not spend a lot in terms of the recreation. Okay. What they need to do probably is the policy direction. For instance, if you want to create a national day for, and we saw it in the previous government, where the vice president led a national day for, kefits.
Yes.
We saw that happen once in probably 6 months, once in every 4 months. That to encourage the habit of keeping fit, exercising every day. Maybe that's what they are looking at. Maybe setting up, and if you travel around, we've done that, quite, a lot. You see open gyms.
Yeah.
in some advanced societies where you can just walk in there and exercise in the open. Maybe that's what they are thinking about, where you reduce the budget on health, for instance, because the population is engaged in physical activity. You know, we are told of China and how they have this habit of exercising and affecting their life expectancy and all that. So maybe that's where they are looking, you know, at. I don't know yet. We don't have that clarity yet. But for me, I think that for the recreation bill, I think a lot more will depend on policy direction and government taking the initiative. Where the major concern will be in the area of sports. They've made promises in infrastructure. They've made promises in, you know, as a matter of agency, developing pitches to international standards across the country.
Yeah. They even talked about, is it upgrading, if not building, the sports college and all that.
You know. So these are major, you know, development that may need some capital, may need some leadership, may need some expertise in trying to do. So I think that's where the major, you know, effort would be in. So I'm just waiting, you know, to hear the announcement of the sports minister so we can engage the sports minister in terms of his personal ambition and plans for the ministry and what the government's own vision is. They give us a manifesto, but that manifesto was not, you know, detailed enough. If you compare what they promised in, you know, for instance, in finance, in energy, and you compare that to sports.
You see that
there's a lot, you know, bit of...
I mean, very scant information, not enough to dwell on. But, I mean, we're going to continue the conversation after this break, but I have to point out that if we are looking at sports in Ghana in 2025, I mean, that's a topic for discussion today. And there's a point that I want viewers to understand, which is that we are starting from the political angle because there's no sports minister as this show runs. And even if a new sports minister is appointed, he's going to go to the vetting committee. He'll be vetted. If he's approved, then he becomes the substantive sports minister. And he would have to initiate us into his plans, not just for the year, but for the next 4 years at most. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, Brenya and I will be going deep into the issues and see where we will place them. Welcome back. Before the break, we were more or less speculating and looking at the idea behind this sports and recreation ministry. I mean, as we are recording this show, we don't know whether or not when the sports minister is going to come, when the appointment will be done, and the vetting and all that. But we are assuming that it will be very soon. Brenya, anytime the minister is named, the issues are not going to change. I mean, the issues confronting Ghana sports. And I have listed some to be some border on governance, so that you have issues of administration with some of the federations or the sporting associations. There are issues with our football. Black Stars is more like a problem child, maybe problem child number 1. Ghana Premier League is problem child number 2. If you put these problems aside, there are issues with our women's football. There are issues with the other national teams. Then you come to the other federations. Boxing has a lot of issues that we have to deal with. If you take track and fields, that's even more like a headache, because until we had the Legon stadium renovated to the standard it has now, there was no proper track and field facility for anyone who wants to train, for instance, in Accra. You know, so I'm just enumerating these issues to paint the picture that there are issues that the sports minister will deal with. What are the key issues for you if a minister is named now or later? What will be the key issues you think that minister, that person, should focus on?
Well, I think that the announcement will be done this month. I think that the vetting will be done this month. If whoever gets the nod to become the sports minister, the first thing he has to deal with is the situation with Otto Addo.
Okay. Relative to Black Stars.
Relative to the Black Stars, whether he stays or he goes, because we have the World Cup qualifiers in March.
Do you guess that the FA is holding on to their decision to keep him because we don't have a substantive sports minister?
Absolutely, because it is not in your hands. It may have financial implications on the states.
In fact, it does, because the sports ministry who pay Otto Addo.
Absolutely. So, okay. in terms of compensation, definitely you have to inform government whether indeed they are ready to do it. For all you know, the sports minister will come in and say that, look, let us keep Otto Addo based on reason A, reason B, and so on and so on. So it's important that the sports minister deals with that immediately, heads on, because we cannot afford not to qualify for the World Cup, because you're inheriting a Black Stars or football where Ghana will be missing out, at the AFCON. Clearly, in the immediate, we will not feel, even though we felt it in the qualifiers. But when the competition starts in December, and you see the kind of football some teams will be playing at the tournament, and Ghana is not in there,
I mean,
that's when we begin to ask the serious questions.
Even before you see the football, when you see the national flags of other countries, I mean, the flags of other countries, the euphoria, the national anthem, and
you've seen CAF already
for a whole month you hear Ghana.
Absolutely, you've seen CAF already posting, last year's events, last year's AFCON.
Like a recall.
Absolutely. So when we get to that point, that's when we will see the enormity of what has gone on. So you need a sports minister who address that head on, because you cannot afford to miss the World Cup as well. So that is priority number one for me. Then priority number two is to look at the whole football ecosystem. First of all, then we also then depend on whether the person coming in is someone who is an industry person, someone who has his own ideas about sports.
Do you think that will matter, whether or not the person is an industry, someone who has a sports background? Would it matter to whatever, whatever work he's coming to do and the office he will hold?
I've always held the view that it doesn't matter. Really. We need someone who is a fixer, who can sit in that office and fix things, who would ask questions, who would have basically the ministry is like a policy, formulator. Then the other agencies and department federations, in this case sports, to implement and also help us get to where we want to get to. But based on the current structure of the ministry, you need someone who has a bit of knowledge in there, because I'm expecting that going forward, we need technical people in some positions at the ministry. So for instance, when the GFA appoints Otto Addo and appoints the kind of backroom staff they did for him, some technical person will raise immediate questions that, look, Otto Addo himself does not come with the credentials that matches the deputies that he has. So clearly, the whole technical setup is made up of amateurish, people. That is a technical decision that someone needs to raise. So you need someone who, people around the ministry, whether the chief director, whether technical people. We saw in the past, Dr. Usons are doing that for ACMS, time as minister. So we need people like that to raise questions. For instance, if the Black Stars is traveling to play Sudan in Tripoli, and they're playing on a AstroTurf, and you're training at a car sports stadium, which is a natural gas, 2 days before the game, someone must raise questions as to why the team is training on that field.
But Brenya, is this a matter that should go to the level of the minister? Shouldn't the FA
be dealt with by the FA?
Exactly. I mean, technical office of the FA should know, because these are basic issues.
Absolutely basic. But the minister and the ministry have the oversight responsibility.
Correct.
So if you have the FA who have decided not to do what is right, then
you must.
Come in. Yeah. But if you lack that technical knowledge, you cannot. I mean, it's just like a blind man leading a group of blind people.
And I share this view that when it comes to the national teams, it's not a matter of GFA doing what they want.
No, it shouldn't be.
Because you see,
it never should be.
The national teams, and in this case, the Black Stars, have been entrusted into the hands of the FA. Ghana has mandated Ghana FA to say, I mean, that's to say, manage this team for us. Yeah. It's not yours. So if they are not doing it well, your point is that the ministry that has oversight responsibility must insist that the right thing should be done. Yeah?
Right thing that will benefit the generality of the nation, not just a few individuals. So for instance, if you bring me a budget of 100,000 as management fees for the Blacks for one person, I will ask serious questions. That if the Casper's pitch is not up to world standard, why should I pay close to $500,000 to 5 people as management members of the Black Stars? You know, I would ask serious questions. If the Black Stars come to Ghana and they are sleeping in hotels, that comes at a cost to the nation, and we go to the World Cup and some revenues come in, why should I give you, you know, a part of it to do whatever you think you want to do with it? Okay. So there are issues that the new sports system has come in and really want to deal with, really be aware of and deal with in terms of, you know, how we manage the national team and the issues. Maybe you say even for the league, it is the president of the FA, but the ministry must be concerned about protecting consumer rights, protecting the interests of Ghanaians, because the players in there are Ghanaians. The fans who go to the stadium are Ghanaians. They are paying hard money to watch games. So, for instance, if you fly or bring in, you know, unregistered players from Tamale to Deo to play a football game, the sports minister must be interested.
Yeah, because you see, it raises integrity issues.
Absolutely.
And some of these issues affect the Ghana's name.
Absolutely.
I mean, you hear the BBC saying football in Ghana has been slapped with sanctions, blah, blah, blah.
The image of the country.
Exactly.
So the ministry and the minister must be very much aware and deal with some of these issues that, you know, border on integrity, border on sometimes even criminality when it comes to our football. Because you can't go to the stadium and attack somebody, harm and, you know, beat up somebody, and the ministry will not, you know, make any comment. So it's important that they deal with all those aspects of our game. But of course, larger sporting issue, you need someone also who will not keep a blind eye to the difficulties and struggles of other sporting disciplines.
And that's where I'll come in and say that we're going for a break. When we come back, my guest is going to look at the other sporting issues. He's someone with an eye not just on football, but on other sporting disciplines, and he's very good at that. We'll go in there when we come from the break. Welcome back. Before the break, I was telling you that my guest, Brinya, has an eye for the other sporting disciplines. I mean, if you listen to his show on Happy FM or Happy Sports, you'll find out that he doesn't just talk about football, he talks about every sporting activity. And Brinya, you were saying that the new sports minister, anytime he's appointed, whether he's appointed now or he has been appointed or he will be appointed, anytime he comes in, must keep his eye on the other sporting disciplines. Why so? And which disciplines are we talking about?
Well, first of all, what he needs to do is to restructure the NSA.
Okay.
Look at the law that established the NSA. Their main duty is to promote and develop sports. They are not only stadium managers. And we reduce them to stadium managers.
I mean, I'm sorry, but in the previous administration, it became like the NSA is good at only managing stadiums and walking on the grass and testing the grass and
the quality of the grass,
watering the grass and
It is their job, but their main job is to develop sports and promote sports. They are the only organization that licenses sporting disciplines in Ghana. In fact, the Ghana Football Association gets their license from the NSA.
And sometimes you feel the FA is
bigger than their budget don't go to the NSA. In fact, it doesn't even go to the ministry. It goes straight to the presidency. So the minister needs to restructure the NSA. And in fact, human resource, the quality of people in there, bring in much more technical people. Then we can then decide to categorize our sporting discipline.
Should this restructuring affect, let's say, the number of federations or associations we have? Because people have also asked questions about the number. Some say it is too much. About, is it 40?
We have 49 now.
49 federations for a country like Ghana.
There are people, you know, still in the queue.
In the queue, waiting to be licensed. Yeah, but should that be of concern to the sports minister?
That's where the wisdom in having recreation then comes in.
Okay.
Because you can't convince me that pillow fighting is a competitive sport.
Pillow fighting.
But they are, you know, accredited. You can't convince me.
I see.
So we, as a country, every country, if you watch the world demographic in terms of sports, every country has its strength in sports.
Yeah. Those that they've prioritized.
Cricket, Pakistan, India, the British, for instance. When you go to America, they are good in the hand sports like the NBA, like baseball. So every country has their own strength. What is our strength?
Football.
Football. boxing,
yeah, athletics, yeah.
So you need to categorize the sporting disciplines. Maybe there's a new sport that may be our strength, but may need a lot more time and investment to get there. So when you categorize the sport in terms of competitive and non-competitive, A, B, C, D, then you know that in terms of funding, who you're funding, based on what criteria are you funding. You remember the sports policy, policy, dialogue we went to.
Yes.
It's something that we made a strong case for, because we can't fund every sporting discipline.
Yeah.
We can't. Even for the British, they don't fund every sporting discipline. There's a criteria. You meet it, you access funding. If you don't, in the next competition,
you're making reference to the sports bill.
The sports bill. So we need that. That will also determine who you are supporting in terms of funding, who you are assisting in terms of technical assistance to get to the level we want to get to, because you cannot, as a country, fund 48 sporting disciplines. It is impossible.
It's something I have not understood, that we have allowed sporting federations or associations to grow to that number, and the headache is even the infrastructure.
Whether they have it or we have to build it for them is also a problem. Okay. Some sporting disciplines games are very easy to do. You don't need much to do. So categorizing those sporting disciplines is so key in going forward. And also how we fund them is critical. So there's a lot of work to be done in that regard. And I pray that the new minister would pay more attention to that aspect of other sporting disciplines in Ghana. Again, if you categorize them, then the criteria will be clear, that if you don't have
certain things,
a constitution, you don't have physical offices, you are not run properly, the governance structure is not proper, you are in public category B or a recreation sport. So we are clear in our minds, and everybody traveling in Ghana with the national team expend the states to fund them to go. If you don't fund them, it's a big problem. They may try to do their visa things, their own things, and get people in there to either athletes or non-athletes to compete for us. We've seen that.
Yes.
Some sporting disciplines take people who are not athletes.
Look,
outside Ghana to compete for us. They don't even come back. They don't even compete at all.
We have to. There's a second part of this show. Brenya has been kind to us. Next week, we are going to continue this conversation. But look, the point he's making as we bring this show to an end is that, and it's on record. This is Pcgtv. We tell the truth. And the truth is that Ghana has a couple of times sent athletes to represent us in certain competitions that the athletes were not who they claim to be. So that if it's deaf and dumb games, people who cannot hear, people who cannot talk, we take them to their competition, and they wear jerseys onto the field and they are talking. You want to wonder whether Jesus descended on the field and did some miracles like he did in his time, or these are crooks that we've taken onto the sport. And these are integrity issues that the sporting sector, whoever is going to head that sector from the government level, must deal with. Fortunately or unfortunately, we will have to end the first part of the show here. Brenya, thank you very much for joining us. But next week, as I promised, we will continue this show and we'll talk more about 2025 and the sporting issues ahead.